Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it, thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Rikudou, the One Above All by Novus Maximus. An extraordinary man dies, Naruto of course, in one world and awakes in another. A genius unrivaled in the use of his abilities that he once thought to be mere fiction. Witness the rise of the pillar of strength that shall hold the world up with the godly power that is within all. For he is the one avatar of the six paths reborn upon this world. He will be extremely overpowered and will have Renegan and Eames. I don't own anything, adios.
It was a quiet early morning. The sun had just begun to show itself and the forest was silent with the exception of the tired moans of an unfortunate group of high schoolers. Suddenly the peace and quiet was interrupted by a giant explosion that rocked the forest. The hell? Asked Kirishima. Another explosion rocked the forest as a streak of green light flashed over the top of a nearby hill. This was immediately followed by a skyward-bound stream of lightning. Seeing this, the students began muttering to themselves as they watched on in awe. Aizawa sighed as he saw the spectacle put up by his two most problematic problem children. "Keep moving. We're close to the training area," said Aizawa. "Wait, we're going to the same place as those two?" asked a kid from Class B looking somewhat nervous. "No, this in a different place that I had Madara create. We get that and they get the rest of the forest," said Aizawa. This seemed to calm the nerves of Class B well, mostly, but that situation was easily rectified. Meanwhile, Katsuki was seething. Yet again it was shoved right in his face the fact that he was inferior to Izuku and Madara. Small sparks danced on his palms as his rage threatened to consume him yet again, but he pushed that feeling down. This was neither the time nor the place to get angry. He could do that later after he learned all he needed to from the teachers here. I watched in silent fascination as a swirling bright blue ball of chakra came into existence above Izuku's outstretched hand. I honestly couldn't have imagined that he would be able to form a full Rasengan within a mere day since I began teaching it to him. It really makes me wonder as to the depths of his chakra control. "Hey, Izuku," I called out. "Yeah?" he responded. "Have you done any other chakra control exercises other than what I showed you?" I asked. He turned his head to me and blinked, seemingly confused at the question. "Of course I did. I've been trying to upgrade my chakra enhancement technique beyond just take chakra and add one for all. I've read your research notes and I had been trying to get better at some wind chakra, but I hadn't made much progress," said Izuku. This surprised me. I had no idea that he was that far advanced in his chakra control exercises to begin attempting nature transformation. Still, that leaves one question. "Why wind?" I asked. Why did you choose wind style as your first nature transformation to train? Your natural affinity is for lightning, which means that wind and earth will be the hardest elements for you to master. Wouldn't it have been better to begin with fire, water, or even lightning?" I asked. Izuku grimaced, clearly understanding my point. I didn't want Todoroki to feel bad if I used fire. Water leads to a lot of collateral damage, especially in cities, and I didn't even think about lightning, he said. I nodded in understanding. "Okay then. So should we be in lightning nature transformation training?" I asked. "Yes, please," shouted Izuku as he let the Rasengan dissipate. "I won't focus too much on already acquired skills and techniques. Izuku is smart enough to know that he has to keep up training and improving. He's still a long ways away from the level of power he needs to be at." As I continued working with Izuku, our shadow clones were working on refining hand seals and several of our fuinjutsu theories. You see, the problem with the hand seals that I invented is that they're mostly gibberish. So far I have well over 40 hand seals and hand seals combinations, and while it works fine for me, it relies too much on having near perfect control over the nature transformation that the jutsu falls under. It's impractical for anyone wanting to learn my jutsu and not just create their own. This first came to my attention when Izuku tried my hand seals and ended up with a completely different effect than what I could produce. To solve this issue, we are working on recreating the Narutoverse 12 hand seals. Not that Izuku knew that this was precisely what we were doing. I may have lived with him for the entirety of this life, but I still don't feel comfortable telling him that I am a reincarnation or that I have intimate knowledge of the deeper aspect of chakra. Now, back to the problem of hand seals. The trick is finding the right ones and in the right combination. Several more iconic hand seals, like the Shadow Clone hand seal, work in the usual plug-and-play fashion because I lifted it directly from the Narutoverse. This being said, after 15 years with nothing to help me recall or stimulate my memories of the Narutoverse, that knowledge is starting to degrade. Little things like how this and that hand seal was formed were among the first to be forgotten. Still, our work is progressing nicely, even if it is tiresome. We managed to recreate 2 hand seals and Izuku was beginning to create his own hand seal gibberish. It wasn't much, but he could now use a few jutsu without having to rely on his scientific ninja tool, or as he liked to call it, his jutsu launcher. Speaking of seals, apparently, Izuku is trying very hard to follow in the footsteps of Minato Namikaze. His theories on the relationship between chakra and the surrounding space-time continuum are brilliant, and it won't take him long to figure out how to manipulate the fabric of space-time to his will. If he succeeds, the Flying Thunder God will be an invaluable tool in our arsenal against All for One and his minions. As far as I know, the hero side does not possess any kind of teleportation quirk, making it difficult for the heaviest hitting pro-heroes to move around swiftly and respond to threats that are not in their immediate vicinity. This leads to many openings that villains could take. After all, they would think twice about committing crimes if they knew that the likes of All Might and I could be summoned at literally a moment's notice to take them out. Even with all this progress, I can't help but worry. Izuku is far from ready. He still thinks too much, and while he is an excellent combatant, he can also be classified as a one-trick pony. This is because most of his chakra must go towards tempering One for All when in use, leaving him with a tiny amount to use for only the most basic of jutsu, such as the replacement, body flicker, or flash step. The Rasengan may be too much of a drain on his resources if he still wishes to use One for All in combat to its fullest potential. Still, the sheer power boost that One for All gives its user may just be worth foregoing the use of any other chakra-based ability. As he was working on his jutsu and hand seals, I too was training. My reserves may be huge, but that means close to nothing if I can't put them to good use. Seeing as we're far away from any kind of civilization, I thought that it was time to try and recreate Kirin. Long story short, it will take me some time to get it right, even if I can currently summon lightning from the sky. It's simply not powerful enough. This is what I would classify as an ultimate move, for it is destruction incarnate. On our 4th day in the forest, Aizawa finally decided to let the kids have a bit of fun. The Pussycats had organized a test of courage, which I found frankly laughable. Still, I didn't put up any kind of resistance to this idea. These were, after all, kids that we were training, and I didn't want them to think that it was all work and no play from here on out, in spite of what I had preached on that first night around the fire. From what I'd seen, that speech was sufficient to light a fire under their butts and make them train harder. I didn't need 40 exhausted kids, especially since my thoughts trailed off as my senses picked up a pulse of chakra from the direction of the forest. Immediately I dialed up my sensory range, and I nearly recoiled in surprise as I sensed 5 new chakra signatures just now entering the boundary I set up. They were closely followed by a 6th with an oddly familiar signature. My eyes widened as I deciphered what it was: a Nomu. "Everyone, back to the lodge now," I yelled. "Wust about to begin our run," complained Uraraka and Asui. "Mandalay, order everyone back. We've been found and villains have breached the perimeter," I said. This seemed to wake everyone up as Mandalay obeyed the order. In that exact moment, Pixie Bob was flung towards the bushes outlining the clearing we were in and was instantly knocked out by a villain. I turned to them, Sharingan blazing, and was greeted by a total lack of chakra in either of their bodies. I stepped forward as I began to exert my presence on the area around me. "Who are you?" I demanded. We're the League of Villains Action Squad, and we're here to cause some chaos. "My name is Magna, and this here with me is Spinner," said the transgender person named Magna. This name feels familiar. Maybe there is something about it in the hero database. "So, you are the mighty Rikudou, huh? I'm not interested in you, but in your brother, the one Stain deemed worthy," said the lizard, Spinner. I narrowed my eyes as my Sharingan glowed and spun a bit. This action made the 2 villains take a step back and look away from me. It was all the opening I needed as I flash-stepped close to Magna and shoved a Chidori through her chest. Spinner gasped in surprise at my action, and I watched as the Magna that I stabbed through the heart slowly turned to mud. "I see. These are clones, the result of someone's quirk. Your leader was wise to send clones against me, but ultimately he overestimated your abilities. Now surrender and bow down like the dogs that you are," I said. "Why, I am Spinner, the follower of Stain who will make his dreams a reality. I will not bow to the likes of you." He didn't finish his sentence as Izuku came in and took off his head with a well-placed lariat. "Ni-san, we've got a problem," said Izuku. "I am aware," I replied as I studied him. He must have come barreling at full tilt towards me as soon as he sensed the chakra pulse from the boundary I set up on the first day. Evidently, he was either meditating or asleep, seeing as he was barefooted and had only a pair of sweatpants on. In the background I could see some girls leering at him. I mentally snorted. It seems that my little brother will have quite the fangirl following if he continues to forget his clothes. "Rikudou, we must gather the other students in the forest. They're sitting ducks over there," said Mandalay. "Understood. Send a message to them and order them to take the shortest route back to the clearing. Tell them that they are permitted to use their quirks in any way they see fit to help them get back as soon as possible," I ordered. With a simple hand seal, there were now 3 of me. The clones instantly headed off into the forest. If villains like Magna and Spinner were all there were here, even clones should be fine. "Wait, what about Koda?" asked Izuku. "Who?" I couldn't help but ask. "My nephew," said Mandalay, who was now a curious cross between irritated and worried. I ignored her and returned to Izuku. "Can you find him?" I asked. He nodded back. I twitched my head to the side and he vanished in a body flicker towards the area that he knew the boy to be in. I too took off into the forest. The main priority of my clones was to evacuate the kids from the line of fire. My main priority was to find and kill the one creating the clones. Such a force multiplier should never be allowed to fall into the hands of villains, and if the hero side can't have it, I'll make sure that no one will. Izuku managed to reach Koda just in time to save him from being reduced to a red paste by the villain in front of them. "Koda, are you okay?" asked Izuku. "He's trembling," noticed Izuku. "Oi, what's this? Are you interrupting my fun? At least have the decency to wait patiently for your time to die," called out the villain. Turning to face him, Izuku was left speechless as he finally recognized the villain. "You're muscular," growled out Izuku. Muscular cocked his head to the side and grinned. "Ho, you recognize me? What are you doing here? Have you come to finish the job you started with the water hose duo?" asked Izuku again. "Finish what I started? Wait, don't tell me that little kid over there is their son. Ha, 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 man, what a day. I mean, I didn't originally plan to kill him, but I guess I'm going to now," roared Muscular as he charged towards Izuku. Acting on instinct, Izuku shoved his arm forward and green Fuinjutsu lines spread out to form the seal for Roai's. Muscular's fist smashed down on the shield with 7 layers. The first 2 layers were instantly shattered. Izuku grit his teeth as he felt Roai's fail him. Grabbing Koda, he replaced himself with a bit of ruble just as Roai's failed completely and Muscular's fist smashed the ground where they were standing to pieces. "You're a fast one, aren't you? Makes sense that Shigaraki wants you dead," said Muscular. This made Izuku snap to attention. "What are your goals?" asked Izuku as he charged one for all in his body. "My goals? I just want to rampage." "Oh, right before I kill you, can you tell me where to find a kid named Bakugo?" "Katsuki? What do you want with him?" asked Izuku. "Fuck if I know. Now, enough talk. Let's do this," said Muscular as he kicked off at Izuku. Izuku met him midway as he tried to trade blows with the muscled maniac in front of him. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough and he was blown back. Shit. He took my 20% like it was nothing. What a stupid powerful quirk. "Is that it? I admit, you're fast kid, but you lack strength," yelled Muscular as he went on the offensive yet again. Izuku instantly flash-stepped away, picking Koda on the way and body flickering out of there. "I'm not enough. Damn it, I thought that I'd gotten stronger, but that guy is too strong for me right now and I can't use my jutsu without worrying about what Koda will do. I doubt that he will listen to me if I tell him to stay put," thought Izuku. A roar was heard through the forest, coming from the mountain where Izuku had left Muscular, making Izuku stop behind a tree. "Hey Koda, I need to get back there. Can I trust you to hide here?" asked Izuku. "No, you don't have to, let's just run," whimpered out Koda. Izuku felt Koda cling harder to him, unwilling to let him go. "I have to go, Koda. I have to stop Muscular." "Why? Why do you have to? Let's just run, it's not worth it, you can't throw away your life like that." Izuku brought up a hand to the back of Koda's head. He moved his head so that he could look into the child's watering eyes. "I have to do this, Koda. There is no other way. Why you?" "And isn't that the $1,000,000 question?" thought Izuku bitterly. He originally wanted to be a hero because they were cool. They saved people, and while he might have this innate desire and instinct, Izuku couldn't help but feel sick at the sheer amount of politicking that a pro-hero, any pro-hero, had to do. Still, he couldn't back down. He didn't want to back down, even if he didn't have one for all, even if he was quirkless, he just couldn't sit back while others suffered. Because someone has to do it, so why not me? Koda, people like Muscular, evil people, they're all the same no matter what they might say, no matter what justification they may have. All they want is to see the world burn. People like your parents, like me and my brother, we stop them, said Izuku. But you'll die. All heroes die. That's all they're good at, cried Koda. I won't die, replied Izuku with a smile. I'll win, you'll see. Izuku set Koda down in between the roots of the tree. Stay here, okay? Koda nodded, returning to his full height. Izuku stretched and took off. It was time to face Muscular. I ran at full tilt into the forest. Through the link with my clones, I could sense that they were approaching the first sites where students were supposed to be. Thankfully, most of Class A was spared and they were now either at the lodge or near enough to it that their combined power will deter any villain assault. This was, of course, if the clone quirk had some limitations. I don't like that assumption. Ideally, I would see this as some sort of when I struck the villain in the chest with Chidori, I felt less resistance than when I do it to a normal flesh and blood person. Going by this, it's safe to assume that the clones are physically weaker than their real counterparts. Now, as to any limitations concerning the numbers it could produce, I'll assume it has none, and that's scary. I slowed down as I reached the front of the poison gas cloud. Folding a few head seals, I took a deep breath. Wind style. Breath of the wind god from my hands and mouth. A massive stream of air shot forth, blowing away the gas cloud. I resumed running, and when I reached the middle of the cloud, I found two students and an unconscious villain. Kendo, Testutsu, are you alright? Rikudou, yeah, we're fine. Began Kendo, but I cut her off. Now's not the time. Head back to camp. Assist any students you may see, but do not waste time. Get to the camp as soon as possible, I ordered. Understood, they replied and ran off. I approached the knocked out villain and reached in my pocket for a restraining seal. It is a fairly new design, made to restrain both the quirk and the body of downed opponents. It was without a doubt one of Izuku's finer works. I slapped the seal on the kid's chest. God, he was even wearing a middle school uniform and he felt scrawny under his clothes. He can't be older than 15, 16 at most, and now he'll get to spend the rest of his prime years in jail if he gets out at all. I pulsed my chakra fuinjutsu, heaven and earth temple 5-point seal. I twisted my hand and blood-red fuinjutsu lines spread across his body, jerking his arms backwards and locking them together near his lower back. His legs were locked together as well. Once that was done, the lines disappeared, though I know that on his chest the chakra will have branded the heavenly temple 5-point seal into his skin, thus making him unable to use his quirk until it was released, and even then, those scars will remain with lingering traces of my chakra for years to come, making the remote reactivation of the seal a possibility. I stood back up and looked towards the section of the forest currently on fire. That will be my next stop. Muscular was pissed, Izuku noted as he watched from the treetops as Muscular punched tree after tree in an attempt to find Izuku and Koda. If Izuku wanted to win this, he'll have to be smarter, not stronger. One for All has proven that it cannot stand alone against Muscular at this level. Izuku had to get creative with his chakra. Unfortunately, all he had on was a pair of pants and some underwear, and carving a seal with chakra into the ground would give away his position due to the light show that usually came with constructing a seal out of pure chakra. In the end, there really was only one solution. Fire style. Great fireball, yelled out Izuku as he blew out a ball of fire the size of a small car. Muscular noticed this and dogged the projectile, making quick work of the distance between them and grabbing Izuku by the throat. Nice attack, kid. Hasn't anyone told you that shouting gives away your position, said Muscular. Izuku grinned as he gripped the hand that Muscular had around his throat. Lightning style. Lightning palm. Muscular screamed as the current passed through his body, immobilizing him. Fire style. Great fireball, came a voice from behind. Being paralyzed by the electricity flowing through him, Muscular couldn't dodge the second fireball and thusly he was hit with the full force of the jutsu. Unfortunately, the heat was too much for the clone in Muscular's hand and it popped. This allowed Muscular to regain some semblance of control over his body as he pushed his quirk for all it was worth to take the brunt of the damage. When the fire subsided, all that was left in its wake was a truly angry Muscular. You, he hissed. Izuku wisely decided to flee as Muscular came roaring after him, cursing and promising to tear him apart limb from limb. Man, this guy can talk. Now, just a little more, thought Izuku. While he was busy roasting Muscular, another one of his clones had prepared a trap for him and Izuku was the bait that was leading Muscular right to it. Not yet, not yet, now, Fuinjutsu, chains of heaven. From the ground, 5 golden chains sprouted as the seal lit green under Muscular. 4 of the 5 chains each pierced one of Muscular's limbs, rendering him immobile, while the last was attempting to wrestle him to the ground with little success. Taking a leap, Izuku charged a Rasengan in his hand and brought down the volatile ball of chakra straight onto Muscular's damaged back. The man screamed as the Rasengan shredded flesh and bone, severing his spine and detonating in his belly, making it explode and spread his guts across the forest floor. Izuku could do nothing but watch in horror at what he had done. Looking down, he saw his hand shaking and stained red until halfway to his elbow. Unable to hold it anymore, he sunk to his knees and vomited, his whole body shaking as he struggled to get to grips with what he had just done. What would All Might think of him? What would his mother and his friends and teachers? I have to find Ni-san. He'll know what to do. With shaky legs, Izuku stood up as he left in search of Koda. He had to get him back to the camp and find his brother. That single line of thought was what was holding him together. He could do this, just like his brother had taught him. As for the rest, he'll figure it out later. Unbeknownst to anyone, for a brief moment, Izuku's eyes flashed red. As I arrived at the location of the fire, I couldn't sense anyone in the immediate vicinity. Now it was all but confirmed. This group of villains truly was working with the League and had access to Kurogiri. They weren't some copycat group hoping to make a quick buck from the League's reputation. Folding several hand seals, I brought my hands to my mouth and let loose the technique. Water style. Waterfall. The deluge of water that came from me was enough to nearly drown the entire area as it swept away the burning trees, extinguishing them and bringing untold devastation to the forest. I vanished once again in a body flicker as I headed to the location where one of my 2 clones was popped. Katsuki and Todoroki were fighting against a villain. If I remember correctly, Moonfish was a cannibal sentenced to death. That was not an easy enemy to deal with. As soon as I arrived, I let loose a stream of Sith lightning from my fingertips. Yes, I know how that sounds, but I don't care. That jutsu looks exactly like Palpatine's Sith lightning and I shall call it as such. Moonfish went down in mere seconds. Is anyone hurt? I asked. We are fine. Thank you for your assistance, said Todoroki. TCH, we had it handled, grumbled Katsuki. I let a small smirk appear on my face. Honestly, if it wasn't for his abrasive personality and stupid inferiority complex, we could have been best friends and maybe Izuku wouldn't have been so lonely growing up with only me around. Of course you did. Is there anyone left on the course? None that we could find. We don't know where Ragdoll is, though, said Todoroki. She'll be fine. She's a trained pro hero. I dismissed his thoughts. Just then, from the front Izuku appeared with a dark shadow possessed Tokiyami and Shogi. Izuku and Shoji appeared to be guiding dark shadow towards Katsuki and Todoroki. Those two reacted instantly, creating enough light to help get dark shadow under control. Are you alright? I asked as I looked them over. My eyes stilled over Izuku. His right hand was covered in dried blood and he was trembling. His eyes were wide and his pupils dilated. He was clearly running on adrenaline alone. Ni-senai, he began, save it. I ordered in a clipped tone that made everyone straightened. We'll deal with it later. Now we have to get back to camp. Izuku nodded stiffly as he changed his focus. I can't let him crash yet, not while we're deep in enemy territory and vulnerable to attacks from all sides. Besides, I can guess what this talk will be about and it's not having with him. We positioned ourselves in a defensive formation with me at the back and Izuku taking point. Katsuki grumbled a bit, but he relented to being the left flank guard. Suddenly a familiar pulse of chakra appeared on my senses as two warp gates opened both in front and behind us. Defensive positions. I yelled they were quick to do so. I shared a look with Izuku. Without waiting another moment we both burst into motion. I had arguably the harder task as my gate spat out a Nomu alongside a villain with burns on his face. With my lightning chakra armor I instantly closed the distance and beheaded the Nomu with a lariat. Izuku, much the same, was busy breaking the horde of clones that were coming from his still open portal. I dogged a blast of fire and sent out a water-style water jet that cut through the clone of the fire user that most likely started the forest fire. Kachan, screamed Izuku. My head snapped up to reveal a villain in a yellow trench coat, top hat and mask holding a cane and a small blue ball. From the chakra emanating from that ball, I could guess who was in it. He waved at us as he stepped back through a portal. No! Yelled Izuku. Suddenly black whip-like strands erupted from his hand and began trashing the surroundings. It lasted for only a moment as Izuku pushed one for all down and under, forcefully deactivating the quirk and holding it at bay with his own chakra. I looked on at the spot where the masked villain disappeared as Izuku screamed in what I could only assume to be a mix of rage and pain. I balled my fist as I took stock of the students still with me. I felt a sick thankfulness that only Katsuki was taken. I shook my head to remove those thoughts. I can't falter now. Others still need me. The immediate aftermath of the attack on UA's summer camp was absolute chaos. Ambulances and rescue crews swarmed the site along with what I believed to be a whole department's worth of police officers. Out of the 40 students present, 24 were uninjured, 11 were physically hurt and 1 went missing. That one was key. Never before had the world seen such a momentous failure, not since All Might's era of peace began. And the fact that the one who failed to stop this threat was me, well, it did not bode well for the confidence of the public. Thank God that Izuku is unconscious. I don't know if I would have had the time to deal with him right now. The death of Muscular was another topic of contention. The police at the crime scene were horrified in the brutal way he was killed, and I admit, I too felt a bit sick. I sometimes forget that a Rasengan is one of the most powerful close-range jutsu ever. Few people in this world can sustain a hit by a fully powered Rasengan, even a base one. I would not put it past this event to traumatize Izuku into not using the Rasengan again. I'll ask Nezu if he can put me in contact with a psychologist. Izuku, heck, all the kids will need therapy after this. Madara, came a voice behind me. Tsukauchi, I greeted in return as I turned to face him. You look like shit, he said as he gave me a cup of steaming coffee which I took gratefully. I snorted, that's the pot calling the kettle black, you know. He cracked a grin at the joke, though he wasn't wrong. While the battles I had in the forest weren't draining or anything, the use of shadow clones took quite the toll on my chakra and stamina, and that's before I take into account the mental exhaustion of having 24 hours worth of memories shoved into your skull in one go. All in all, I looked ready to keel over, which I suspect is the reason why the press at the scene hasn't swarmed me yet. Whatever, I'll deal with the judgment of the masses after I saved Katsuki and ripped out All for One's hearth and fed it to him. Madara, are you okay? Asked Tsukauchi in a worried tone. Yes, why? I responded curiously. The look on your face was scaring the other officers, he said bluntly. Looking around, I noticed that it had indeed scared them. I huffed and drank some coffee. The media will have a field day with this, I muttered. He winced and patted my back. A vain attempt to comfort me, but an appreciated one nonetheless. Nezu is waiting for you at the hospital. I'll make sure to keep you up to date with everything that we find here. I nodded in thanks and left to find a car with someone to drive me to the hospital. I'm in no state to travel by foot or flight, and ironically enough, even though I have a full-blown pro hero license, somehow I am still forbidden from gaining a driver's license before I'm 18. The hospital looked like an ant's nest that had been kicked over. Nurses were scrambling to house and take care of all the kids, most of which were knocked unconscious. I stayed close to Tsukauchi, not wanting to bother the staff there, even if I desperately wanted to go and check up on Izuku. I know that he wasn't hurt or anything, but the mental strain that this entire situation placed on him can't be good. As much I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, he's too young to have the blood of someone else on his hands. God, how am I going to explain this to All Might and Mom? What am I even going to tell them? Sorry I made your kid an era murderer? In hindsight, I should have realized that Izuku wouldn't know how to regulate the power of a Rasengan to make it non-lethal. Furthermore, I shouldn't have shrugged off a full-powered Rasengan during our spars without a single wound. I probably shouldn't have taught him such dangerous techniques while he's so very young. Yeah, there's a lot of things I shouldn't have done, but the past is the past. Now I have to deal with the consequences of my poor judgment. A traumatized brother, numerous injured and one missing student. Madara. I snapped out of my thoughts. Apparently, I had robotically followed Tsukauchi to the room where we were supposed to meet Nezu. Also, the principal was already there, seemingly waiting for us. Thank you, Tsukauchi. We'll let you know if there's anything we might need, said Nezu. Understood. Still, Madara, we need your report on what happened. Do you have any paper around here? I asked. Nezu pushed forward a few sheets of paper, having seemingly predicted I would ask this. I let out a huff at this. Of course the rat would predict this. Placing my hand on the paper, I focused my chakra and burned the letters of the report in the paper. I handed the sheets of paper to a bewildered Tsukauchi, who took them while giving me a look of pure envy. I snorted. Any goodwill I had with the police department was most certainly gone now, given that I just disclosed that I was blessed with the divine power to slay the demon known as paperwork. Madara, please sit, said Nezu as he gestured to a sofa. Right. Back to business. I allowed myself to collapse on the sofa and Nezu climbed up in the chair opposite to me. We waited in silence for a bit, to allow the both of us to gather our thoughts. I told you so. I told you that this might happen, Nezu, I began, though my words lacked any real heat. The time was too far gone for us to be shifting blame around. So you did. Even so, I never expected this. We have used this method for years and never have we had a breach in security. This year we even changed the location and only a few knew of the trip, said Nezu. So you're thinking that you have a mole in your school? I asked. He nodded. It wasn't a stretch to think that. After all, in this age of technology, trackers can be exceptionally small. You are the only one I can trust not to be compromised, Madara. Even so, I can't prove to you that I haven't been compromised myself, said Nezu. I groaned as I closed my eyes and let my chakra wash over me. Even running with only dregs of my full power, my chakra was still potent enough to bring me back to a state of alertness. You can't discount the possibility of a tracker quirk. This is all for one that we're dealing with. No one knows the full extent of his powers, I reminded Nezu. I considered that, but the search teams have yet to find Ragdoll and all that was recovered was a bloody headgear piece. I clenched my fist. Ragdoll, wielder of the quirk surge, or should I say former wielder. I highly doubt that All for One would leave such a useful quirk to exist outside of his possession. What about the other teachers? How is All Might dealing with this? I asked, hoping to move away from such topics as that megalomaniac. I haven't told him yet. If he found out, he would most definitely waste valuable quirk time coming here, said Nezu. A logical decision, Nezu, but he will find out sooner rather than later, and I trailed off as I heard a commotion coming from the hallway. I moved to investigate, with Nezu close behind me. When I arrived, I was greeted with the sight of my hysterical mother being held back by security. As soon as she saw me, she began calling my name. I signaled the guards to let her go and she ran to me, sobbing and clinging to me, all the while babbling about Izuku. Honestly, the scene she was causing was quite embarrassing. Mom, please get a grip. You're embarrassing me, I said quietly. That seemed to have done the trick as she began to calm down. I can't do this anymore, Madara. This is the third time that Izuku's been in danger like this. My heart can't handle it. Please convince your brother to drop out of UA, she said. A shocked silence fell over the crowd. I too felt shocked, as well as Nezu, who was still hiding in the background. Not here, I growled. Snapping out of my shock, I lead my mother to the room that I previously occupied with Nezu. I sat her down and took a seat next to her. Nezu was still hanging back and observing our interaction. Now, what's this all about? You never had anything against Izuku going into heroics before, I asked. She sniffed. I thought that I was just a fazhat. Quirkless people couldn't be heroes. He would come to his senses. But then All Might happened and he was so happy that I couldn't take that away from him. I thought that he would be safe. That he would have a nice school life, live the life of a hero for a couple of years, then settle down with a nice girl and have a family. He shouldn't have been forced to fight for his life before he was even 16 inches. She cried harder at that. I agree. Miss Midoriya, I am Principal Nezu. Please allow me to give you my deepest apologies for what happened. But know that we will be implementing a dorm system from now on to better protect our students, said Nezu as he approached. How can you know that? How can you assure me that nothing bad will ever happen to my Izuku during his school career? I've already seen Uwa be attacked 2 times. How many times will this happen? Mom was shouting. Okay, that's enough, I said, flashing my chakra and Sharingan. This seemed to have somewhat quelled her. Whether Izuku decides to leave Uwa or not, that's entirely his decision. You will not force him to do either, I said, staring her down. She attempted to sputter back something, but under my Sharingan gaze she found herself speechless. If word gets out that a student's parent wants their child to leave UA, that's fine. For most that would be expected. But that does not apply to those children in the hero track, and even more so if the child in question happens to be my brother, the symbol of hope. I will not have society's faith in heroes destabilized at such a critical time. Not to satisfy your selfish desires, I said. Mom turned red in anger as she rose as well, attempting to match my height and failing. I am his mother, I have every right to do this for his safety, she yelled. Without saying anything I pulsed chakra to a storage seal inked into my forearm, and in a puff of smoke, a stack of papers appeared. I threw them on the coffee table next to us. What is that? She asked, startled. That is all the documentation I need to remove your rights as Izuku's parent through my authority as a pro-hero, I said. As she stared down in horror at the stack of papers, I couldn't help but feel a stab of pain in my eyes. It was minute, but I felt it nonetheless. Though it was nothing like the hot iron that was shoved through my heart as she looked back at me with a face full of betrayal. I bent down to pick up the stack of paper and reseal it. I'm doing this for Izuku's own good. You know as well as I do that being a hero is his entire reason for living. Denying him that would as good as killing him. Now, Izuku is unconscious and in a fragile state. Your presence here is distracting and disruptive. I will have Tsukauchi escort you home where you will stay, guarded until Katsuki is recovered. There was darkness as Izuku woke up. Where am I? As he looked around, all he could see was a seemingly endless black void. Above him, he found a giant star that looked to be exuding plumes of blue energy that then merged with an intricate network of pathways stretching across the dark sky. In the distance, he could see another star, this time emanating green light that seemed to be linked with the blue star and constantly feeding the blue star its green energy. The green star was also several orders of magnitude more massive. What is this place? Asked Izuku. So you are the 9th, came a voice from behind. Izuku whirled around and tried to speak but found himself unable to say anything. Looking down, he saw that most of his body was covered in black smoke, making him seem almost indistinguishable from the rest of the void that he found himself in. Looking up, he saw the strange man that had spoken before. He was thin, with shaggy white hair and a sickly appearance. You are so young, the man began, and so very powerful. Even without us, your potential is limitless, and even with all this power, you still choose the righteous path. The man paused and looked to his left. Izuku followed his gaze and saw another 7 people lined up beside them. Some were more visible than others, but it was clear enough what this was. This power of ours was cultivated throughout the generations for a singular purpose, said the man as he pointed to the other people, who now each held in their hands a small star of light, each brighter than the other who preceded it. The vestiges of one for all. So that must be the first user, thought Izuku. I want to show you something. 9th? Izuku turned back to the man before him. The man gave a small smile as the world around them faded and another scene appeared. It showed another man, dressed in fine clothes and with the same white hair as the first user, standing in front of a ragged-looking first. All for one, was all that Izuku could think. Izuku looked on as he listened to the conversation between brothers and felt ever so grateful that he had Madara as his sibling. Suddenly the scene shifted again to display a scene of chaos as quirked people attacked the non-quirked, and into that chaos, All for One appeared like an avenging angel, a twisted mockery of a savior that recruited more and more followers as he walked through the destroyed streets of the once great city that now lay in ruins. The scene shifted again and Izuku watched as One for All was born. Suddenly the image disappeared and the first was before him once again. I wanted to show you more, but even with your fast progress, you're only at 20%, said First, be careful, for we have already passed the singularity. You are the one who will complete One for All. Complete One for All, what does he mean? The first stretched out his hand. Remember this, you are never alone. Their hands touched, One for All activated and Izuku woke up. In another part of Japan, the Emperor of Evil, All for One, rose from his slumber. Something is happening to my little brother, I can sense it. My lord, we have found their hideout, came the voice of the doctor. A grin stretched across All for One's face, excellent, and just in time too. If I'm not mistaken, Tamura has already procured himself the piece he desired. It won't be long until Rikudou and all might come to us. Still, my lord, wouldn't it be better to ensure better security against such a thing? Surely the Bakugo child could still prove useful even if he doesn't agree to join us, said the doctor. Oh, you don't have to worry, my good doctor. This is a valuable lesson for Tamura, and if everything goes to plan, we might even be rid of a most annoying pest in that Rikudou brat. I wonder if seeing his brother's corpse would shake the faith of Izuku Midoriya enough for me to take one for all from him. That is certainly possible, but are you sure that he will come to you? Won't All Might prevent him from coming? Asked the doctor. Well, wouldn't that be the height of hypocrisy? After all, All Might himself came to witness his master's death, so he shouldn't deny his successor this honor. Ah, that brings back such pleasant memories. It would be the perfect irony to kill All Might and Rikudou in front of Izuku Midoriya. Maybe even kill his mother. Yes, that would surely do it. My good doctor, please remind me to tag Inko Midoriya after this little excursion. Of course, my lord. Good. Kurogiri, called out All for One. The Mist Man appeared and knelt before the Emperor of Evil. My lord, I am ready for your commands, said Kurogiri. Open a gate to the compound of the Shi Hasaikai, ordered All for One. Without moving from his kneeling position, Kurogiri opened a warp gate through which All for One stepped through, followed closely by the doctor and Kurogiri. In the courtyard of the compound they were met with a slew of men. Once they caught sight of All for One, they all collectively gulped and made no move to attack. All for One grinned behind his mask. It brought him such joy that his very presence could inspire such fear. The door of the house opened and an elderly man stepped out. Once he saw All for One, he bowed. Lord All for One, to what do we owe the pleasure of your visit? Oh, nothing much, pens to have a quirk that I require. The elderly man tensed up alongside the black mask-wearing young man that was bowing next to him. The Shi Hasaikai has kept in your good graces for quite some time, Lord. Perhaps we could help you achieve your goals through other means, said the young man with the mask who was also bowing. I wonder what you could do to restore my body to full power, but do go on, you have caught my interest, said All for One. The elderly man glared at the younger but held his tongue in front of the Emperor of Evil. The young man invited All for One to follow him to the room where the little girl was held. As they walked, Kaya explained the power of Eri to All for One. Once they arrived in front of the door to her room, they stopped. You make a most interesting proposition. I will make a note of it in the future. Now see to it that I am not disturbed. Kurogiri, remain here and guard the door. Yes, my lord. All for One and the doctor entered the girl's room. As soon as she saw them enter, Eri was overcome with fear and tried to get away, only for All for One to catch her with telekinesis and bring her to him. Such a fascinating quirk this is. The power to rewind all biological organisms to their previous state. It's a shame that you can't use this quirk on yourself. I may come for you in the future, but now my dear, stay still and let the good doctor take some samples, said All for One. The doctor approached and jammed a needle in the little girl's flesh and veins, making her cry out in pain. All done. Now my lord, let us prepare your return to glory, said the doctor. All for One dropped the girl, who scrambled to get as far away as she could from the monster in human form. All for One took a seat and the doctor carefully detached his mask and life support tubes from his face, revealing to Eri the broken face that he gained after his fateful final bout with All Might. Eri whimpered at the sight of him. Now don't be scared, you're here to help me, don't you want to help me? Said All for One with a dark chuckle. Eri trembled as she shook her head. No? Well, that's too bad, you don't really have a choice in the matter. Forcible quirk activation. Black and red tendrils leapt from All for One's fingers and into Eri as her horn began to glow yellow. She screamed in pain as she was forced to activate her quirk against her own will, the yellow light covering All for One as well. The man grunted as his face shifted and his body changed as he was returned to his younger days. After a few minutes, the yellow light died and Eri dropped to the floor with a high fever and unconscious. The doctor peeked up from behind the desk he had hidden. My lord? He asked. He heard a chuckle that slowly descended into mad laughter of pure joy. The doctor couldn't believe his eyes. There, in front of him stood the Emperor of Evil as he was before his battle with All Might when he was at the peak of his power. Suddenly, red lightning swirled around his form as he lifted his head and opened his eyes for the first time in 6 years, revealing toxic gold and red eyes to the world. The lightning increased in intensity and exploded outwards, making the door to the room blow off its hinges. All for One stalked outside. Kurogiri knelt before his master while the others only looked on in horrified awe at the being before them. The ripples of his power were felt far and wide, and 3 people, in particular, sensed the reawakening of All for One. My eyes snapped open as I felt a terrible wave of power wash over me. Spreading out my senses, I could feel the energy used to create it. All for One, I growled, opening the window to the driver compartment of the limousine that I was in. I relayed my new orders to the driver. Make for Uo with all due haste. At once, sir. I closed the window back up and I shut my eyes. It's been a day since the entire debacle with the training camp, and while most students were allowed to go home, Izuku was still kept under surveillance after One for All's mysterious self-activation. In theory, he should already be at UA to meet with me, and if what I sense is right, then we might have a bigger problem on our hands than I previously anticipated. The car was quickly ushered in past the crowd of reporters, and I made for one of the higher lounge areas where Izuku was probably waiting for me. I was proven correct, as Izuku was indeed waiting for me. I took a seat on the couch opposite to him. We sat in silence for a bit, until I sighed. "It's not a good idea to bottle up your feelings, Izuku." He snorted, "Like you have any right to talk about feelings. Do you realize what you put our mother through? When I came home this morning, she was still crying and begging me not to leave her. I mean, really, first Dad and now you. You know that she doesn't have the heart for what we do," said Izuku, glaring at me. I did not rise to the challenge. "She would have pulled you out of UA if I didn't do that, and don't change the subject, Izuku. As much as you don't like it, we need to talk about what happened with Muscular," I said, locking my gaze with his. Izuku tried to hold it, but eventually gave up and curled into himself. I sighed. "I'm not blaming you for killing him," I said. Izuku flinched and looked up at me, seemingly searching if I was truly honest. "That night was rough on all of us, and to be frank, it is my fault for not teaching you how to regulate the Rasengan's power properly. No one is going to blame you for going all out against someone such as him. Now, tell me what happened with One for All while you were unconscious," I said. Izuku paused for a moment, seemingly to digest what I said. This wouldn't be the end of it, and he will undoubtedly have nightmares for weeks to come, but he was at least thinking about it logically. I found myself in a giant black void, and the first user spoke to me. He showed me his memories before gaining One for All. He also said that I was the one who will complete One for All, though I have no idea what that means. At that moment, All Might decided to make his appearance. He looked ragged, like he hadn't had a good night's sleep, and I don't blame him. This last attack by the League has all of us on edge. We talked a bit about what happened with Izuku's vision, and All Might promised to dig up any information he could find on the previous wielders. Before we move on to the last matter of our agenda, I have to ask, has either of your senses something amiss earlier today? I asked. Now that you mention it, I did feel a bit uneasy a couple of hours ago, mused All Might. I felt something wash over me for a second some time ago, but I'm not sure what it was, confirmed Izuku. My eyes narrowed. Only one other being that I know of is capable of unleashing such power. All for One. All Might inflated and Izuku stiffened. Their unease was now palpable. "This is bad," said All Might gravely. "Indeed. All Might, I do not expect this situation to end without a confrontation between us. And I fear to what lengths All for One would go to see us demoralized and killed," I said. All Might nodded. "So, what are we going to do then?" asked Izuku. "We aren't going to do anything. All Might and I will face him," I said. "What, you can't just sideline me," yelled Izuku, outraged. "I can and I will. While I don't blame you for your actions against Muscular, the mere fact that it has ended the way it did shows that you are far too reckless in battle. Against a foe like All for One, that could very well be your end, and I will not sacrifice you just to fulfill your desire for revenge against his poophead," I said, cutting off any argument that could arise. Izuku clenched his fists. All Might stayed silent. "If we do this, young Izuku, you must prepare yourself for the chance that we might not return," said All Might softly. I stayed silent as I saw a multitude of expressions fly across Izuku's face in a fraction of a second. He retook his seat and brooded. I said nothing because I knew that he understood what I meant to say. While he was reckless, Izuku wasn't stupid. He KTHE legacy that his 8 predecessors worked so hard to construct would end with him. "I'll talk to Nezu to let you stay at UA. You should be able to monitor our progress from here," I said. "I'm putting on Mjolnir," said Izuku. I could tell that was not a request. "I'll allow it nonetheless. If the unthinkable happened and he needed to defend himself, it would be far better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Izuku, take whatever weapons you think you might need from the vault. While I'm against you fighting, All for One has shown himself to be in possession of a warp quirk. Those can be nasty if paired up with the correct quirk," I said. Izuku nodded and left to get dressed. All Might stayed silent during our whole exchange. "If we don't make it," he began, "don't go down that train of thought, Toshinori. You won't fall. Not this time," I said with conviction. He looked softly at me and deflated. He rose from his seat and placed his hands on my shoulders, then brought me into a hug. "You are the greatest heir a man could ask for. Take care of your brother and know that even if we have known each other for little more than a year, you and young Izuku are the closest things to sons that I ever had." I wrapped my arms around his bony shoulders and hugged him tightly. "You are the closest thing I had to a father in this life. I know that Izuku feels the same. I just hope that we can live up to your expectations." "Ha, my boy, you have already surpassed them, both of you. I couldn't be more proud," said Toshinori with a beaming smile. It was at that moment that a thought entered my mind. "You're saying goodbye, aren't you?" I asked in a low mutter. "Maybe, I don't know. This battle shall be my last Madara. Whether I die or not is still undecided," said Toshinori as he let go of me. With a final wave, he left to find Izuku and give him the same speech he gave me. I pulsed chakra through the seal on my other forearm and a bottle of scotch and a glass puffed into existence. One final drink and then I prepare. At the end of tomorrow, nothing will be the same. Legends tell us that gods once walked the earth alongside humans. The ancient heroes of every civilization are almost always never seen as mere men. Until that day, I as well as the rest of the world thought that these stories were just that, stories. Now, gods walk among us yet again and they possess terrifying power. Excerpt from A History of Modern Heroics, Chapter 12, The New Gods of Humanity. It's been 48 hours since Akatsuki was kidnapped. The sheer amount of backlash that Uo received was surprising. Somewhat unsurprising was the dip in popularity that I received as a result of my failure to protect the students at the camp, though I was surprised at how little I dipped in popularity. It seems that most of the anger is directed at UA, rather than at me. Whether this is their true feelings or the manipulative hand of the Hero Commission, I don't know. "Sir, they're ready for you." The voice of the secretary brought me out of my reverie and I entered the room. This was a private meeting between me and the Hero Commission's higher-ups. "Rikudou, it is a pleasure to meet you," said the commission president. I shook her hand. "The pleasure is mine, Madam President. Please excuse my bluntness, but I believe that we have more pressing matters to deal with right now." "Of course. Please, sit," she motioned to the sofa near the wall. This was a pretty standard meeting arrangement for a top hero. She took a seat in the armchair opposite to mine. "Now then, what is this about?" she asked. "I'm here to talk to you about the rescue mission of one Bakugo Akatsuki," I said. She straightened up immediately as she heard that. Any trace of the pleasant face she used to greet me with was gone and all that was left was cold steel and hard eyes. "What about it?" "I have reason to believe that All For One has somehow returned to his full power, or he is very close to it," I said. I see the color draining from her face as she shakily puts the cup of tea she previously had in her hand on the coffee table between us. Without a doubt, she knew that this was bad. Very bad. "Are you certain?" she asked, completely certain. "No, but several hours ago I sensed a wave of power unlike any other. Madam President, right now there are only two people in this world capable of such might. Myself and All For One. Now it may just be a ploy to shake our resolve, but I'd like to err on the side of caution," I said. She nodded. Even though our relationship started with thinly veiled threats and blackmail, she knew that I was one of the few heroes that she could trust to put the needs of the people before her own. After all, so long as my family was alive and safe there was no need to fear any sort of retaliation from me. And even if I didn't operate as most pro-heroes do, she knew that I was effective, very effective in suppressing criminal activity. "So, what do you suggest we do?" she asked. "Issue a command to all pro-heroes. We need support so that All Might and I can focus solely on All For One without having to worry about collateral damage. We need a good number of rescue heroes, preferably those known for quick and efficient rescues. As for battle heroes, Mirko, Endeavor, and Edgeshot should be enough. I'm sure that Nezu will pull some strings of his own to bring some more heroes to the fight," I said. She nodded grimly. I nodded back and puffed into non-existence as my shadow clone dispelled itself. Back at my hideout, lab, I opened my eyes as I received the memories from my clone. With that part done, now it was time to turn my attention to my armor and weapons. Some final tweaks need to be made in preparation for tonight's meeting. I spent the rest of the day at my hideout with Izuku and All Might, getting ready for the coming battle. For this, we both put on the Mjolnir Mk2 armor that I had just finished building. While the first iteration of the armor was good, I found out quite soon that using ancient Edo-era armor as the design basis for the quantum-locked titanium chromium carbide outer armor shell was quite stupid as it severely limited my mobility when in flight or jumping across obstacles. I thus decided to scrap the design entirely and replace it with one designed for pure function over aesthetics. I can deal with the aesthetics part by using over-armor robes to look cool. In the end, I settled for a simple red cloth that went over both my shoulders and was kept together with a belt, thus allowing the lower part to flap in the wind a bit. Izuku went for a dark green haori with black accents and the kanji for 9 etched in red on his back. It was a weird choice, but I said nothing about it. All For One most likely knows that he is the 9th wielder, so it's not like there's a need for secrecy or anything. That and the general public, while they would be confused, would probably make up some wild story about why he has that on his back. The more surprising part of all of this was All Might's wish to get some armor of his own. Now, I couldn't make one as good as ours on such short notice, but I did manage to modify his costume enough to accept and lock down tightly on several plates of quantum-locked titanium armor. It was a lower quality than ours, but it should at the very least allow All Might to make some mistakes without it costing him his other lung or worse. Though, I have to admit that he looked kind of strange in that black and silver armor over his usual hero costume. With that done, I headed to the armory. In there, I found Izuku, looking over a giant scroll that had been spread over the floor. "Izuku," I called out. "Ni-san," he replied but didn't acknowledge me. "What are you doing with the barrier scroll?" I asked curiously. This made him look at me. It pained me to see his once so bright green eye turn steely. This had been his default expression for the past 2 days. "I'm coming, Ni-san," he said. I opened my mouth to reject it, but stopped as he raised a hand to stop me. I closed my mouth and sat down next to him. "I need to do this, Ni-san. Katsuki is my friend. Despite what I said to him at the sports festival, I still consider him my friend. He's the only one besides you that got me, even if he was a jerk most of the time. Even if I don't fight directly, I can still be useful and try to protect others with barrier seals." I was quiet for a bit. Inside me, 2 sides raged. One side told me to take up this offer of help and think logically. After all, having someone protecting the bystanders from the blowback and odd stray shot that was surely bound to happen in this fight would be a really good idea. On the other hand, this was my brother we're talking about, and my protective instincts were screaming at me to wrap him up in bubble wrap and hide him away until he's 30. "Izuku," I began, "can you promise me that you won't engage All for One?" I asked. "No, if he tries to attack me, all bets are off and I'm going after him with my full might, but I won't actively seek him out and leave that to you," he said. I breathed a sigh of relief. If he had instantly said no, then I would have left him here, but now I know that I can trust him to keep his cool in this fight. "Very well, you can come, but if there's even an inkling that you might be overwhelmed, I want you to withdraw immediately. As much as I know you were told this, as the 9th user of One for All, you are not expendable. Not when compared to me and All Might," I said. Izuku clenched his fist, finished looking over the barrier scroll and packed it up. I watched as he went and picked up a gunbai along with another scroll and left. Despite him not talking, I knew what was going on in his head. He listened to my part and had acknowledged my sound reasoning. There was nothing more to talk about. After all, there were still preparations that needed to be made. I went and picked up a chakra rifle, several seal tags and a second sword, just in case I lost my current one. The meeting room was buzzing with activity. Heroes from every part of the billboard charts were mingling with one another, wondering as to why they had been called here and top 10 heroes around. All in all, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Hawks, Edgeshot, Mirko, and Ryukyu all answered the call sent out by Principal Nezu and the commission president. In that crowded room stepped All Might, standing shoulder to shoulder with myself and Izuku. All of us dressed in armor and all of us with a serious expression. "Thank you for coming," I began. "There is no easy way to say this, but the enemy we are about to face may very well be the most dangerous criminal ever to exist in the world. Some of you may know of him, either through rumors, or you were told about him. Regardless, know this. All Might faced this enemy 6 years ago and emerged victoriously, but gravely wounded. Until a few months ago we thought that he was dead, but it was discovered that this enemy, All for One, was in fact very much alive and active as the mastermind behind Tamura Shigaraki and his League of Villains." Murmurs spread through the crowd and a few of the pro-heroes narrowed their eyes at us. "If All for One is back again, why weren't we announced?" asked Endeavor. "We didn't know in what capacity he had returned and I did not want to involve anyone else in this matter," said All Might. "And yet you involved these boys in it," pointed out Best Jeanist. There was silence for a while. After all, it was obvious that he did not approve of us being here. From the corner of my eye, I could see Izuku shifting slightly, denoting his nervousness. Though, I have to say that his poker face is quite impressive, especially for an emotional person like him. "Our involvement is necessary. You don't have to know anything else. We all asked you here today to help with the rescue of Katsuki Bakugo. We will handle All for One," I said. "Why do you need so many heroes then? I mean, even if All Might was injured, he has recovered, right? If he beat this All for One once, surely he can do so again," asked a no-name hero. A murmur of agreement swept across the crowd, but the top 10 heroes were frowning at what he said, even though they kept quiet. Suddenly, All Might stepped forward. "Everyone, I am sorry for keeping this from you, but in the state that I am right now, I can't hope to match All for One's true power," he said as steam began to rise from his body. In front of an entire room of heroes, All Might reverted into Yagi Toshinori, the decrepit old man far past his prime. The sight of his decrepit form shocked all the people in the room, even the police and commission higher-ups that were sent to supervise this meeting. All Might did not stop to listen to any questions, but instead, he showed them the wound he incurred from All for One. "I'm not telling you this to gain your pity. This is a warning against the level of power that All for One wields. We don't know if he will bring forth to battle any of his old allies, or if he has any other Nomu completed, so we decided it was prudent to get some help so that the two of us can deal with All for One without distractions," said All Might, making a gesture towards me. "I won't blame anyone that wishes to withdraw from this battle. The enemy we are about to face has struck terror in the hearts and minds of Japan's citizens for more than 100 years. However, I will ask you to help with the evacuation of civilians from the site of the battle," I said. "So, what you're telling us is that you called us up to deal with any second-rate villain that the big boss might bring to the table and get the civvies out of there so you can go all out on each other," said Mirko, crossing her arms. I nodded. "That's the gist of it. My brother, Izuku, will provide cover for the other heroes with barriers. This being said, the level of this battle will be such that there will inevitably be casualties, both pro-hero and civilian alike. Your main priority is to evacuate as many people as fast as possible. Tell them to keep on running until they can't anymore. You make this sound like you won't be able to control the damages that this battle will incur on the surrounding structures, said Edgeshot. That's because we won't be able to do that, said All Might grimly. The first time I fought All for One, it was I who decided where to engage him. Now, it's the complete opposite. If we are to fight him at full strength, we can't be worrying about property damage. Katsuki was pissed, but that wasn't anything new. Rather, it was what he was pissed at that was new. After he was released from that marble that he had been stored in by the clone of the jester maniac in a top hat, he had been instantly put in chains and strapped into an uncomfortable chair as he listened to the hand maniac go on a rant about everything he believed to be wrong with today's society. The bastards wanted him to join them, so Katsuki told them no, repeatedly and with varying degrees of cursing mixed in for good measure. Now, Katsuki wasn't stupid and he hadn't been forced to go to therapy for nothing. He knew that the world was far from perfect and he would grudgingly admit that he too had been part of the problem. But he was willing to change and be a hero that All Might would be proud of. So, when the previously closed back door opened and the handsman stopped his ranting, he paid attention. "Sensei," said Shigaraki with reverence. "Tamura, it seems that you have failed again," said the man. Now that he was closer, Katsuki couldn't help but gulp at the mere presence the man was exuding as he stood there, with hair whiter than Todoroki's white half and dressed in an immaculate black suit that would surely cost an arm and a leg for any normal person out there. For a split second, Katsuki was 5 again and facing down an enraged Madara, seeing death appear before him for the first time in his life. "I'm sorry, Sensei," he murmured. The other villains of the League of Failures all stood quietly to the side, not daring to even speak up against such oppressive pressure. "Don't be. Learn this lesson and start again. Remember, everything I do is for your sake," said the white-haired monster. Suddenly, the wall exploded inwards and All Might stepped in the room shaking with rage. Faster than he could see, All Might smashed into the villain. "You're done for, All for One, here to kill me again, All Might?" Finding the warehouse where Katsuki was kept was a hassle. It's times like these that I come to appreciate my paranoia. On the first night at summer camp, I placed a tracker seal on each student. They were prototypes, so their range wasn't great and they were meant to help me keep track of them without using a shit ton of chakra on sensory techniques. I'm just thankful that I found the warehouse quickly. I can't afford to be wasteful with chakra today. This fight may very well take every shred of chakra I have and more. At least I have All Might to back me up. Between the two of us, we may just win this. If I was alone, I don't think I would have been able to beat All for One. I looked at the soon-to-be battlefield as police and lower-level heroes began evacuating the civilians from the surrounding area. I could still sense Katsuki in the building, and since Nezu was running interference with the press along with Aizawa and Vlad, I don't have to worry about nosy reporters blowing the operation. Not that I would have allowed such a reporter to live very long if I had found him. Suddenly, I felt a spike of power with my senses. "Get ready," I yelled. "He's here." All Might didn't wait for me to issue the order as he smashed through the wall of the building and clashed with All for One. "Secure the perimeter. Don't let the League escape," I ordered. Suddenly, a wave of highly pressurized air came from the building, wrecking it and several other buildings behind us. I jumped into action and slammed my hand on the ground, pushing earth-natured chakra into the ground. Earth style. Earth wall. A wall of compacted soil rose from the ground and in front of the heroes, shielding them from the winds, but it collapsed in the process. As we were getting up, I heard a slow clapping sound coming from the now half-destroyed warehouse. "Wonderful, as EXU, or do you prefer Madara?" I looked up as my eyes bled crimson and the Sharingan spun into existence just in time for me to glare at him. "All for One, we meet at last," I said as I rose from my previously crouched position at the front of the mass of heroes I had just defended from his attack. He laughed. "Oh, how nice of you. You know, this really makes me nostalgic. I would have never pegged you for a connoisseur of early 21st century culture." I narrowed my eyes as I drew my sword and pushed lightning-natured chakra into it, giving it a blue glow. All for One's eyes widened and he grinned. "Oh, I will enjoy this," Metal groaned as it was torn from the concrete around us and reformed into his hand, making a perverted mockery of a sword. It was ugly, unwieldy, and if you were a normal person straight up unusable. Suddenly, it began sparking with red lightning and glowing with a red hue. I couldn't help but grin as I too took a stance. I jumped forward and clashed with him. I entrusted Katsuki's rescue and the defeat of the League to the others and I focused on trading blows with AFO. Strangely enough, the man was clumsy in his handling of the blade. I would have thought that All for One would have had more skill in battle. I heard him growl and his other arm expanded. I flash-stepped out of there as another huge ballast of air destroyed a good portion of the surrounding city. As I looked closely at AFO, I could see a healed cut on his arm. It was evidently fresh, and given that I was the only one engaging him, that means that I made that wound. I grinned at him. "Well, would you look at that?" The big bad king of the underworld is nothing more than a brood. How sad, I mocked. He gritted his teeth and broke apart the monstrosity in his hand into spikes, which he threw at me. I parried all of them and jumped to avoid another air cannon attack. At this point, All Might had rejoined the battle, though he was unable to face AFO directly as he was more concerned with evacuating all nearby civilians, which was fine. I can tell that my opponent isn't serious yet, so there's no need for me to switch to ninjutsu yet. I have to be careful, though. Even if AFO is a brutish fighter, he is still intelligent and mustn't be underestimated. I must take care to not exhaust myself. If I can keep up this game of tag just a little while longer, then more people would be safe. Enough of this, face me, you pathetic creature, he screamed. I replied by spitting a fireball in his face, that angered him. Okay, that's enough. The gloves come off now, he said in an oddly calm voice. The next thing I knew, I was being flung out at high speed and a crater, nearly a kilometer in diameter had formed at our battle site. Izuku jumped into action only a moment after his brother had all but teleported to meet All for One in combat. Even though he wasn't a part of the main attack force against the League of Villains, he still had a vital role to play in this engagement. Reaching back, he unfurled one of the 2 giant scrolls he carried and laid it on the ground. Another puff of smoke made when he withdrew the control key to this particular invention of his. Said control key was made from 2 pieces of granite held together by heavy-duty hinges. On both sides of said pieces were engraved hundreds of seals that interlocked with each other in very complicated ways. This was a weapon meant to use the power of One for All in full. It was a means of manifesting into the world that very quirk whose only purpose was the destruction of All for One without necessitating the current wielder to actually use it himself. Fuinjutsu Blood Art. Abel's opening of the Golden Vault, Varuna. The Fuinjutsu glyphs on the stone tablets glowed with green energy as nature chakra crackled violently around Izuku. From the scroll on the ground, another great Fuinjutsu circle spun into existence and the energy around him took the shape of a massive 6-armed Buddha with 3 heads that held in each hand a ball of different colored energy surrounded by complex Fuinjutsu structures. Curiously, Izuku noted that something was different from when he last used this Fuinjutsu to bring forth the manifestation of One for All into the world. One of the energy balls in the Buddha statue's arms now lacked the Fuinjutsu lattice around it and instead, strands of a black whip-like substance came out of that ball of energy. I see, so those balls of energy are the manifestations of the previous wielder's quirks. I better contain it so it doesn't rampage, thought Izuku as he folded his right hand into a half-ram sign and a new lattice of Fuinjutsu appeared over the previously freed sphere, though it was only tight enough to restrain the whips from hurting somebody and didn't prevent their manifestation. Now, for the final piece, Fuinjutsu Blood Art, 6-armed Buddha Heavenly Sunwheel. As he spoke, Izuku opened the previously closed stone tablet in his hands. The seals on the inside glowed bright gold as filtered chakra entered them. Behind the great statue-like chakra avatar a golden Fuinjutsu circle appeared and like the sun it gave off rays of golden light. At the end of each ray sat a simpler smaller circle. Fire! Shouted Izuku at one every golden circle filled with golden energy and fired at once, turning night into day as the warehouse where the league was previously held and much of the surrounding area behind it was turned into rubble. With this task complete, he tuned the avatar to point towards the crater where his brother and All Might were duking it out with All for One. As soon as All Might leapt through the building, Endeavor was quick to follow him. Behind him were Best Jeanist, Mirko and Edgeshot. They managed to take cover behind the earth wall that Rikudou had raised and then they continued onwards. As soon as they arrived, Best Jeanist used his quirk to pull Bakugo back and free him from the restraints he was in. "Get to safety, kid, we'll handle it from here," yelled out Mirko. "You damn heroes, why do you have to mess everything up?" yelled the man-child as he slammed his and into the ground, causing a part of it to decay and collapse. "You're done, League of Villains. Surrender," called out Endeavor. "Ha, that's what you think," called out Dabi as he launched a ball of blue flames at the heroes. Endeavor countered it with his own flames, but he noticed that the blue fire seemed to be slightly more powerful than he had expected. "Kurogiri! Get the others and the Nomu," yelled Shigaraki. "Stop him!" yelled Endeavor. Edgeshot tried to reach him but it was too late and several gigantic warp portals had opened through which countless Nomu and several other villains emerged. "Withdraw, we can't fight them here," called out Best Jeanist. As soon as he said that, a gigantic quake came from the side followed by a wave of air. As he looked over, Endeavor couldn't help but be shocked. What was once a vibrant part of the city was now turned into a crater with collapsed buildings all around. On one such collapsed buildings, two figures were fighting, one clad in a red hue and another in blue lightning, as they tore the land around them asunder. Just then, another wave of power hit them, and as he looked behind, Endeavor couldn't help but mimic Bakugo as he looked stunned at the sight of the massive avatar surrounding Rikudou's younger brother. Just when he thought that things couldn't get more insane, the six-armed Buddha suddenly sprouted a sun out of its back and fired golden bolts at the warehouse that was now teeming with Nomu. Thankfully, there were no heroes inside. "That damned brat. He could have killed us all," said Mirko, laughing. "Can it?" barked back Endeavor. "This is not over." The pile of rubble that formerly was the warehouse suddenly shifted and exploded outwards. It seemed like the quirk of one of the new villains had protected them. Just then an earth-shattering roar was heard through the city as a massive villain came out from Kurogiri's still-open portal. "What is that?" cried out one of the lesser heroes that RUSP the top 10. Gigantomachia had taken to the field. Izuku couldn't help but curse in his head. Just as he was about to unleash another attack from his Varuna, this time at All for One, another giant villain appeared from the ruins of the warehouse. Izuku turned his avatar around and lined up another shot. In the back of his mind, he knew that he had to deal with this fast. Thinking back, it may have been a mistake to use this as his opening move. The Varuna was the logical progression of the special Fuinjutsu pellet that he had used in the sports festival against Todoroki. Each of the bolts fired by the Varuna was of equal strength to the one he used against Todoroki. The only problem was that he could only take so much stress before his coils cracked under the tremendous pressure that using one for all in such a way creates. To be honest, the giant scroll on the ground was used to regulate the pure nature chakra that was exuding from him. This was quite a bothersome fact. While he was a sage, he couldn't use the nature energy actually present in nature. The fact that it looked like a six-armed Buddha was an aesthetic coincidence on Izuku's part. Still, the avatar was paper-thin and had just as much defensive strength as a piece of paper. This was no ultimate shield and sword, like the Susanoo that his brother has told him about, and the less said about its defense, the better. The giant villain roared again as an almost endless number of Nomu began rushing forward into the lines of heroes. Izuku cursed in his head. He just had to show off the Varuna right at the start, and now he was useless. Still, it wasn't that big of a problem. After all, the beauty of Fuinjutsu was that it was always ready for use. Izuku slammed the stone tablet shut and dropped it onto the scroll at his feet. As he did that, the Varuna began to disperse. Without wasting time, he took the second scroll from his back and set it on the ground. As soon as he did that, he began working through hand seals. Fuinjutsu Barrier, Heavenly 10-Pillar Containment. From the scroll, a Fuinjutsu circle appeared and let loose 10 tags that each were shot out to a different corner of the battlefield. From each of them a blue line stretched up to reach for the heavens, and from those lines, blue field barriers stretched from one to another, thus trapping the villains inside. "Go! I'll hold them in. Go and defeat the villains," yelled Izuku. That seemed to embolden the heroes as they too let out a thunderous war cry and headed into the mass of Nomu. Amidst the chaos, Izuku could see that the heroes had lost sight of Katsuki. Fearing the worst, he used his senses to try and locate him. Unsurprisingly, he was still inside the barrier, but what was surprising was that he was with Kirishima, Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Iida of all people. They were too close to the main conflict, so Izuku took it upon himself to get them out of harm's way. During the chaos of the warehouse being destroyed by Izuku's fuck you to common sense and what he considered to be normal reality, Katsuki was separated from Endeavor and the other heroes that had helped rescue him. Just as he was about to get moving once again, he was pulled to the side by Kirishima. "Bakubro, you okay?" asked Kirishima. Katsuki grunted, not willing to show his thanks to his arguably only friend, and yet not fully trusting his voice. "We need to leave. We'll only get in the way if we stay here," said Shoto in his normal tone. It was only then that Katsuki noticed them. "The hell are you doing here?" "We came to rescue you. What do you think?" came a droll response from Shoto. "Huh? Go die you motherfucker, I didn't need no rescue." "Clearly, you want to go half and half? Enough you two?" came the firm voice of Iida. "We can't stay here or we'll risk getting stuck in the crossfire between the villains and the," he said, gesturing to the gigantic statue that Izuku seemingly created only to flex on reality. Katsuki didn't reply. He had had a front row seat to the sheer destruction that thing caused. It boggled the mind that not even a year ago he had thought of Izuku as that quirkless waste of space. It made him, heck it made even the heroes in the top 10 look like small children compared to him, and the less said about his brother the better. Looking over his shoulder, Katsuki could see from here the area where Madara and All Might were fighting the villain boss. All in all, the writing was on the wall. Izuku had long since surpassed him in every way possible. "Let's go." Katsuki stopped staring and followed Kirishima, only to be shoved back down by Iida as a massive villain burst forth from the wreckage of the warehouse. It easily matched Izuku's "fuck you reality" statue in height. What surprised him was when said statue suddenly began to collapse and scatter in the wind. Katsuki could not think of any reason why you would put away your biggest gun, especially at a time like this. "Shit," cursed Shoto, turning to look back. Katsuki saw a giant pillar of blue light appear mere feet in front of them. Before any of them could get their bearings, the pillar gave off a curtain of light that merged with what appeared to be 10 other pillars, effectively trapping them in. It was clearly Izuku's work. "What now?" asked Momo. "Now we get down," yelled Shoto as he sent out a wall of ice that blocked a ball of flame from the villain Dabi. "Oi, brats, where do you think you're going?" called out another villain with blades for arms. Katsuki grinned as he flexed his hands and prepared himself for the fight of his life. The sword arm guy charged, but right as he was about to make contact, Katsuki felt something pull at his collar from behind as a giant war fan came between him and the sword maniac. Instantly, he knew who it was. Izuku came up from behind Katsuki and kicked the blade guy away before turning and batting a fireball from Dabi away from him and finally swinging the war fan to produce a gust of wind that wouldn't be out of place in a hurricane to blow the two villains away. Finally, he turned and Katsuki could see him, truly see him for the first time since they were young. Izuku looked at him for a second and nodded to himself. He was checking him for injuries. Katsuki realized, and a feeling he wasn't quite familiar with rose within his chest. It wasn't the usual anger that accompanied any thought of Izuku. At any rate, it was something to think about later. Izuku did a few weird hand signs and a portion of the barrier that had trapped them opened. "Go! Get as far away from here as you can," yelled Izuku as he turned back to face the now oncoming league of villains. Katsuki noticed that this was their full roster. "Come with us, you can't win against all of them," yelled back Shoto. Katsuki felt himself be pulled up. Looking up, he saw that it was Kirishima who was doing the pulling. Izuku smiled at them as let loose a gust of wind that sent them tumbling through the hole in the shield. Before they could even get up, the shield had closed back up. As they gathered themselves, Katsuki couldn't help but look back. He saw Izuku's back, his coat fluttering in the wind, war fan held up high and a war cry coming out of his mouth as he charged at the horde of enemies. At that moment, Katsuki couldn't help but feel that he was witnessing the birth of a hero, and after all, heroes never lose.